Oh, my heel!
I've never seen somebody standing.
The night had begun like any other for Kelly Clarkson, or at least it seemed that way at first. A quiet, unremarkable October evening that carried just enough unease in its edges to be noticeable only in hindsight. It was the kind of night where the world sank into a deep, unbroken sleep, yet something in the air felt subtly misaligned. Like an instrument almost but not quite tuned. Long before her phone vibrated, Kelly felt a tension sitting just below conscious awareness, an instinctive tightening in the gut, the faint sense that something was approaching, something she could neither name nor dismiss. That instinct sharpened into certainty when the low buzz of her phone slid under her pillow, vibrating insistently the way messages do when they demand attention rather than request it. Her screen lit up with a number she didn't recognize. Her stomach dropped before she even had the time to think. Some truths don't announce themselves logically. They arrive as a kind of premonition. It was 3:04 a.m. on October 2, 2025. An hour when the ordinary world was swallowed in sleep but when the extraordinary often slipped through the cracks. The message attached to the late-night call was not a text, not a voicemail, but something far more alarming. A voice memo, nearly half an hour long, time-stamped, and sent without explanation. The file name was nothing more than a series of numbers, but the area code struck her immediately. 580, Ada, Oklahoma. Blake Shelton's home territory, ranch country. The ground zero of years of friendship, banter, partnership, and trust forged under the bright, ceaseless lights of entertainment. The length of the file, alone 28 minutes and 47 seconds, made her pause. Nothing sent at 3 a.m. from that place, with that duration, was simple. And according to every public statement later made, the memo wasn't supposed to be heard by anyone, least of all her. Blake claimed it had been a mistake. Kelly claimed she had never meant to save it. But the truth, as with most stories involving fame, fear, and fragile human boundaries, was much more complicated. Neither of them was telling the whole story. Not because they were lying, but because the truth was too layered to fit cleanly into a public narrative. Most people imagined the real story would involve scandal, tabloid rumors, marriage speculation, headlines about a $200 million divorce that never materialized. But the theory pieced together from fragments, receipts, and the rare confessions of those close enough to know better painted a far stranger picture. The beginning of this narrative didn't lie in the 3 a.m. memo at all, but months earlier, on June 15, 2024. In a stark white exam room at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. A date so outwardly ordinary it would have slipped into oblivion, had it not later become the hinge upon which the entire story turned. Kelly did not know the significance of that day when the memo arrived. She learned it only after answering the call on its third ring, her voice barely awake, the world around her still thick with sleep. For a long moment, there was nothing on the line but silence, heavy, breath stiff, the kind that carries the weight of someone gathering the courage to speak. Then she heard Blake. His voice emerged rough, ragged, as though scraped raw from shouting, or whiskey, or grief. The first thing he said was not her name, not an explanation, but a fractured sentence. "I can't do this anymore." Kelly, anyone listening casually would assume he meant marriage, or work, or some dramatic personal revelation. But his tone betrayed something deeper, something that lived beneath the surface of even his most polished public persona. He wasn't talking about relationships. He was talking about his voice, the instrument that had built his life, fame, and identity. He had been hiding a deterioration for over a year, a decline so gradual yet so frightening he had buried it behind every smile on The Voice, every performance, every casual joke that made America believe he was invincible. He had concealed the strain through whisper exercises, secret vocal coaches, canceled meet and greets, and carefully choreographed public appearances. His team noticed the small things: warm lemon water at odd hours, the way he guarded his throat, but no one asked questions. Not until that night. Not until the quiet of 3 a.m. stripped him of the ability to keep pretending. Kelly listened in silence as he recounted the Mayo Clinic visit, the diagnosis he had kept private, the contract clauses with NBC that could void his position if they learned of his condition prematurely. He spoke of fear, not fear of the illness itself, but fear of what would happen if the world found out, fear of losing not just his voice, but the relevance tethered to it. For nearly half an hour she absorbed his confessions, the pain, the pressure, the weight of maintaining a flawless public image while privately falling apart. But around the 12-minute mark, something shifted. A faint third voice filtered into the background, so quiet Kelly barely noticed until later. Fans who dissected the leaked fragments with spectral software identified it as Blake's manager. a man with a history of leaking information to tabloids. 3 days later, he would be fired. Hours after that faint voice was captured on the memo, the phrase laryngeal diagnosis appeared on a burner Twitter account with 12 followers words only 3 people on earth should have known: Blake, Kelly, and that manager. The public split instantly. Some saw Blake as vulnerable, broken, deserving of compassion. Others saw manipulation a desperate attempt at attention or control. The truth, as it turned out, was both simpler and far more complex. Blake hadn't accidentally recorded the memo. He had orchestrated the entire sequence. His phone, left connected via Bluetooth to his Range Rover in the kitchen, had served as bait. His manager, already under suspicion for leaking confidential information, had been given just enough access, just enough temptation, to seal his own downfall. The late-night memo to Kelly was both a confession and a trap, a safeguard, a record, a protective layer against anyone who might weaponize his vulnerability. But Blake's strategy wasn't without emotional cost. At minute 26 of the recording, his voice softened, stripped clean of performance or manipulation. He admitted he wasn't afraid of losing his voice. He was afraid of losing relevance, of becoming someone the world no longer cared about. Kelly didn't interrupt. She simply listened, a quiet act of loyalty, more profound than anything she could have said. When she asked him gently, "What do you want me to do?" his answer was soft, almost resigned. "Nothing. Just keep being you. Let them wonder." And she did. She didn't intervene. She didn't leak. She didn't destroy the memo immediately. Instead, she tucked it into her iCloud trash, where it remained for 13 days, long enough for Blake's plan to unfold, short enough to honor his trust. She provided her team at NBC only the minimal metadata needed to prepare for possible fallout: screenshots, timestamps, nothing that betrayed Blake's intentions, nothing that exposed his fear, just enough to help them proceed cautiously. Meanwhile, the public went into a frenzy. Theories multiplied. Fans posted analyses of the spectral audio. Gossip sites speculated about relationships, secret feuds, backstage drama. The hashtag Blake illness surged. Yet the real story had nothing to do with scandal. It was about loyalty, fear, strategy, and survival. The medical PDF Blake had sent her, the very documents the manager later leaked, was real. But the interpretation was exaggerated. His condition was treatable through rest and diet. Not career-ending, not catastrophic, but a perfect tool in the hands of a man who understood how to leverage vulnerability without being destroyed by it. What Kelly never said publicly was how deeply the call affected her. Somewhere in her phone's gallery, partially visible in the corner of a screen recording, was a backstage photo of the two of them from 2023. Blake held a coffee cup with the handwritten message, "Thanks for having my back." That photo resurfaced online weeks later, becoming one of their most liked posts. Its meaning wasn't sensational. It was intimate, a reminder that before strategy and tests and traps, there had been friendship. After the memo leaked in fragments, Blake reclaimed control of the narrative with stunning efficiency. His team confronted the manager with timestamps, GPS data, Bluetooth logs. By October 5th, the man was fired. Blake's contract remained intact. His public image stabilized. The illness buzz faded into the background, replaced by sympathy for a hard-working star performing through pain. But something in Blake shifted after the ordeal. Something in Kelly did too. She never mentioned minute 26 again, never repeated the fear he had confessed. Trust, once tested, often survives, but never entirely unchanged. Backstage footage captured subtle differences in their dynamic. Kelly's hand hovered a little longer before answering his calls. Blake's voice softened when he spoke to her, as though subconsciously acknowledging the intimacy of what she had witnessed. Their friendship remained intact, perhaps even strengthened. But the knowledge they now shared lived like a shadow, present, quiet, unspoken. The story, in all its mystery and emotional complexity, persisted in the public imagination because it blurred the line between authenticity and performance. It raised questions about trust: who deserves it, how easily it breaks, and how carefully it must be rebuilt. It revealed the paradox of vulnerability in fame, how it can be both a weapon and a wound. And it reminded everyone watching that the people behind the cameras, behind the voices, behind the strategies, remain human, fragile and afraid, even when their lives appear impossibly large. In the end, the memo vanished when iCloud purged it after 30 days. Only fragments remain: screen recordings, spectral analyses, and the lingering emotional imprint on the two people who lived it. But the story survived because it illuminated something universal: the yearning to be understood at 3 a.m., the fear of being forgotten, and the complicated dance between exposure and protection that defines both fame and human connection. Blake had crafted a strategic masterpiece. Kelly had responded with unwavering empathy, and somewhere between confession and calculation, their friendship was tested, stretched, and ultimately proven resilient, though not unscarred. The world speculated. They moved on, but for the rest of their careers, the echo of that 3:04 a.m. call would remain. A quiet reminder that even in the relentless glare of celebrity, it is often the unseen, unspoken acts of loyalty that matter most. Top of form, bottom of form.